Two men, two warnings, both silenced. One was bold and brash, the other smooth and spiritual. Both spoke out. Both are gone. Pimp C and Heavy D weren't just icons in hip-hop. They were truth-tellers, men who had seen too much, men who weren't afraid to say what others whispered behind closed doors. And when they spoke out, they didn't pull punches. They talked about what they saw behind the music, the fake personas, the private parties, the secrets that could ruin empires. One named names, the other kept it cryptic, but both pointed in the same direction. Something was deeply wrong in the industry. Then, just like that, they were gone. Dead under strange circumstances. The cause? Pneumonia. In this story, there will be a lot of that. Maybe they weren't just venting. Maybe they were warning us. Long before the speculation and the internet sleuthing, there was Heavy D, real name Dwight Arrington Myers. A beloved figure in hip-hop, Heavy D wasn't just an entertainer. He was a bridge, a connector. Known for his charm, smooth delivery, and positivity, he had ties to everyone from Andre Harrell to Diddy himself. He wasn't just in the room. He often helped build the room. But after his sudden passing in 2011, questions started to bubble beneath the surface. Heavy D was said to have collapsed outside his Beverly Hills home. The official cause, a pulmonary embolism caused by deep vein thrombosis. But the circumstances felt strange. He was only 44, reportedly in good shape, and still very active in the industry. What made things more unsettling were the claims that Heavy D, too, had been growing uncomfortable with what he saw behind the scenes. Rumors circulated that he had knowledge of things, secrets connected to the darker side of the industry. He reportedly hinted at off energy and unspoken truths in private conversations, especially in the months leading up to his death. The people closest to Heavy D remain mostly silent, but the online community hasn't. As you'll soon see, they've pointed out a pattern. An industry insider, tied to Diddy, gone too soon. A pneumonia-like death. Another voice that may have known too much, silenced before they could speak louder. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Heavy D's music was upbeat, joyful, and clean, clear of profanities. But don't let that fool you. Heavy D wasn't just a performer. He was a power player behind the scenes, deeply connected to Uptown Records and instrumental in shaping the careers of artists like Mary J. Blige and, yes, Diddy. What many people don't know is that Heavy D was once Diddy's mentor. He vouched for him, pulled him into the industry, and watched as the young intern-turned-mogul skyrocketed past him. Over time, though, their paths diverged. While Diddy embraced fame and controversy, Heavy D took a quieter route, focusing on production, spirituality, and staying out of drama. It didn't help that he had just been in London days before, reportedly for business tied to the music and entertainment elite. Some claimed he had begun distancing himself from certain figures. Others said he had seen things during his heyday that still haunted him. And once again, one name kept coming up: Diddy. Before the headlines, before the conspiracies, before the silence, there was Chad Lamont Butler, known to the world as Pimp C. One half of UGK, Pimp C wasn't just a Southern rap legend, he was a firebrand. Loud, unfiltered, and fearless. When others bit their tongues, Pimp C bared his teeth. In one of his final interviews before his untimely death in 2007, Pimp C made waves by calling out what he called foul behavior in the music industry. But this wasn't just about fake personas or industry beef. He pointed to something darker, something about private parties, men in the industry engaging in things that, in his words, weren't right. And while he never mentioned names directly, the context left little room for doubt. He was bold, maybe too bold. In December 2007, just months after making these statements, Pimp C was found unalive in a hotel room. The cause? Officially, it was a mix of sleep apnea and promethazine. But even then, the whispers began. Friends and fans questioned the timing, the silence, the suddenness. How does a man that full of life just vanish? Some say he was reckless with his words. Others say he was silenced. But one thing's certain. Pimp C saw something behind the velvet curtains of fame, and he wanted the world to know. In multiple interviews, Pimp C openly criticized the state of the industry. He spoke of exploitation, false images, and the pressures male artists faced to conform to a hidden agenda. But what made people's ears perk up was his repeated mention of certain names, particularly those with power. Diddy's name came up more than once, not in slander but in caution. There was something about the parties, the backroom deals, the rumors swirling around the elite circles of hip-hop that made Pimp C deeply uneasy. So the official cause of his passing? An accidental overdose mixed with sleep apnea? Much like Heavy D's case, many fans and conspiracy theorists weren't buying it. His family claimed he wasn't abusing drugs at the time. He had been vocal, outspoken, and disruptive, traits that often make people targets. What disturbed many even more was a pattern emerging. Another artist tied to the upper echelons of the industry, gone under mysterious circumstances. Another case labeled with respiratory failure, and once again, circling Diddy. Pimp C's passing wasn't just a loss for Southern hip-hop, it was another thread in an increasingly tangled web. Before Diddy was Diddy, there was Andre Harrell, the visionary founder of Uptown Records. If Heavy D opened the door, it was Harrell who gave Sean Combs the keys to the building. He discovered him, mentored him, and ultimately gave him his big break. Without Harrell, there might never have been a bad boy empire. Andre wasn't just a music executive, he was a cultural architect. He fused hip-hop with high fashion, street swagger with boardroom finesse. He saw something in Diddy early on, and he let him run wild until he didn't. In 1993, Harrell famously fired Diddy from Uptown, reportedly due to internal conflicts and Diddy's aggressive approach to business. That moment was a turning point. Diddy went on to launch Bad Boy Records, and Harrell remained a respected force in the industry, though no longer in the spotlight. Over the years, they publicly reconciled, but those close to both men say something between them was never quite the same. Then in 2020, the news hit like a thunderclap. Andre Harrell had died suddenly at the age of 59. The cause? Initially unclear. Some said heart failure, others hinted at complications involving, you guessed it, pneumonia. No concrete answers were given. But what made people raise eyebrows wasn't just the suddenness, it was the timing. Harrell had just signed on to executive produce a television biopic about Uptown Records. He was reportedly preparing to share untold stories from the golden era of 90s hip-hop. Stories involving Diddy, stories that hadn't been heard before. And just like that, he was gone. In the wake of his passing, fans and insiders alike began asking uncomfortable questions. Did Harrell know too much? Had he seen too much during the birth of an empire? And once again, pneumonia, or its vague cousin, complications, was cited in the fog of silence surrounding his death. One sudden death is a tragedy. 2 is suspicious, but 3, 4. At some point, the pattern demands attention. Andre Harrell, Heavy D, and let's not forget Kim Porter, all tied to Diddy in deeply personal and professional ways. All pronounced dead after reportedly suffering from pneumonia or pneumonia-related complications, and all gone before their time. To some, it's just coincidence, tragic but explainable. To others, it feels calculated, like a silencing mechanism cloaked in medical vagueness. You'd be surprised how often pneumonia appears on death certificates when no one wants to probe further. But let's go deeper. Kim Porter's autopsy was delayed for months, only for the cause of death to be listed as lobar pneumonia. Heavy D collapsed in front of his home just days after returning from a trip abroad, again, pneumonia. And Andre Harrell's passing was so sudden, so unexpected that it prompted a flurry of online speculation before any official statement was made. The public shrugged, but those paying closer attention began connecting dots. Not just in the cause of death, but in the timing. In each case, there was talk of upcoming projects, biopics, memoirs, or interviews that could have pulled back the curtain on music industry secrets. specifically secrets tied to Bad Boy and its founder. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, silence. Whether or not foul play was involved isn't something we can definitively say. But when Pneumonia becomes the recurring villain in the deaths of multiple figures linked to the same man, the whispers get louder, especially when those whispers come from within the industry itself. Because here's the truth. In hip-hop, what's not said often matters more than what is. What if Pimp C and Heavy D weren't just making noise? What if their warnings weren't ramblings but roadmaps? In a world where image is curated and narratives are carefully controlled, men like them, men who speak plainly, who refuse to play along, often don't last long. They get branded as paranoid, troubled, or worse, forgotten. But look at the trail they left, the friends who vanished, the stories that never made the headlines, the shadows that keep circling the same name. Sean Diddy Combs has built an empire, one of music, fashion, and influence. But empires have foundations, and sometimes those foundations are built on silence, sealed lips, and unanswered questions. Pimp C spoke about being followed. Heavy D warned about the industry's dark side. Both died suddenly without the kind of closure their fans and families deserved. And as time passes, their voices grow louder, not quieter. Echoes that refuse to die. The question isn't whether these men were saints or perfect. It's whether they saw something we didn't. And whether their deaths, alongside others like Kim Porter, Andre Harrell, and even Static Major, fit into a bigger picture we've been too afraid to connect. Because once you start asking questions, the industry stops feeling like a dream factory and starts looking like a crime scene. And the scariest part? Some of the loudest warnings came from men who aren't here anymore.